Alrighty. Morning, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us today. We're going to be going over the part of our BIM workflow series. This is going to be the session 2. We're going to focus on project setup. So a couple of things to just go over in the beginning. Everyone's going to be on mute for the duration of the webinar. If you have any questions, you want to ask something, please feel free to ask it into the chat or the questions window. I'll be keeping an eye on that during the course of the presentation, and if I can answer the question right where I am, I will. If it doesn't quite fit in there, I'll make sure I take care of it at the end. Okay. So a couple basic things about Microdesk. So, excuse me. Microdesk is an AECO technology consulting firm. We've been in business since 1994. We actually celebrated our 25th anniversary last year. We have 13 locations in the US and 1 in the United Kingdom at the moment. We are over 300 professionals, and our technical team alone includes over 230 people. We have our own internal dev team as well. So we can create custom content, whether it's modeling, software, plugins, customizations, you name it, we kind of cover it. A lot of our focus really comes from making sure that AEC is as efficient as possible. We work with our clients to help them on their own projects and to help them with their workflows. And we are very aware of where things are going and the different methods of actually addressing them. So things like globalization, sustainability, urbanization. You know, we are on top of the current trends. We're trying to make sure that all of our clients are as well. Now, in terms of the things that we do, again, I mentioned a little bit of everything. And a lot of our services can be on the project support, where we're actually working side by side with our team. It could be helping them have a better understanding of the technology that's currently available. It could be doing the just basic support or creating scripts or tools for them. So anything that happens within the realm of the AECO, so from the early on napkin sketches, all the way through building and facility management and maintenance. So we have different teams that focus on different aspects and disciplines, and we've worked in the field as opposed to just knowing how the tool works. And as part of that, we have a large assortment of partners that we work with to make sure that we are using the best-in-class tools, and we have our partners that we can lean on when we're finding problems or when we're hearing feedback from our clients. We can pass that along to make sure it gets addressed. Now, today's presentation is given by myself. I'm the Senior Technology Evangelist at Microdesk. What that basically means is that I work with a lot of the emerging technologies. My focus has been on Revit and BIM for probably close to 18 years now. And I work with the new tools and figure out, okay, is it something that's new and shiny, or is it something that's actually useful? And if it is useful, okay, how can we use it? How can we bend it without breaking it? And make sure that both my internal teams as well as my clients understand that and can take the best advantage of it. Now, our agenda today is to go over our webinar series. So rather than trying to do an overview of all the different things you can do in BIM 360 in one webinar, what we've done is we've created a series. And I'll go over that in a second. Today's focus is going to be on project setup in BIM 360. So it's going to be going over how do you actually turn on services, which as of this week just changed. How do you set things up? How do you prepare the project before you start inviting the rest of the team? So we're going to be going over that today. Now, before I get rolling though, I would like to ask everybody just a couple of basic questions. So first one, pretty standard. What's your current role? Do you work as a designer, engineer? Are you more on the project manager or principal level? Are you a CAD or a BIM manager, finance, etc.? And don't worry, there's only a few of these and they're pretty quick. Alrighty. And next one, are you currently using BIM 360? So a lot of the times we hear people that they are or they have in the past maybe, and they're not currently using it. One big thing about this is that BIM 360 years ago was a very different animal from how it is today. And today that is getting updated quite regularly. There were actually quite a large number of updates that just got put out in the last week. Okay. And then last one. Outside of BIM 360, are you currently using any cloud or mobile tools? So if you're going out on the site and doing surveys or punch lists or inspections, or just a tool that allows you to do markups and coordinate with your team from anywhere. Alrighty. Perfect. Thank you very much for everybody for your interaction. I appreciate that. And again, if anybody has any questions, you want to make note of something or ask something, please feel free to drop that into the questions window or into the chat. Let's see, there is. All right. Cool. So let's get rolling. So Microdesk's BIM 360 workflow series is focusing on the aspects of setting up a project and working on the project, as opposed to just trying to do a regular demo of BIM 360. So the last one that we did was on the setup of BIM 360. How would you actually get started overall, creating your hub or account, and then getting in there and getting your team in there. This session is going to be on the project setup. Moving forward, as we continue with this, we're going to be talking about BIM 360 design specifically, setting that up, using it, make sure everybody understands how that works. There's a couple of terminology issues we run into pretty often with that. BIM 360 model coordination, which actually just had an update this last week. The build platform, same thing. We're talking focus on how to take all these mobile and what you can use, little things to watch out for, and how to use BIM 360 for operations. Again, though, this one, we're going to be going over the project setup. Now, BIM 360 from Autodesk is their cloud collaboration platform. So there's a lot of different aspects to it and a lot of different things you can use it for. And within that, there's a handful of packages. Now, the one thing about project setup is that this is something that's consistent across all the different packages. So it doesn't matter if you've bought docs or design or build or coordinate. The main component or library for all of these is that backbone, the document management. So a lot of what I'm going to be touching on today is going to be focused on the document management and the project setup, which is consistent to all of these. So what I'm actually going to do, hop into the account administration. Definitely not going to bore you with PowerPoint today. So right now I am in the BIM 360 account admin site. And what I'm looking at is my projects page. So when I look over here, what I can do is I can run through and I can see my members. So I get members over here, they don't immediately take a license once I've added them here. Think of this as a contact list or, depending on how dated we are, a Rolodex. But until I add them to the project, that's when they're going to start taking licenses. I'd like to set up a project, so I'm going to say add. So I can give this a name. I can always rename this later on if I need to, and I choose the project type. And of these types, you can change them after the fact, but if you start off with something from a sample project, you can't change it to one of the sort of actual construction projects. So it's going to be one or the other. So in this case, I'm just going to start off with a office. Everything else here, I can fill in later on. If I want to put in a graphic that helps me see from the list what this project is or how it's represented, I can do that. But unless it has an asterisk, I don't have to deal with it. So I go through here and now I can say save and continue. Key thing about this is that once I hit save, this project is created. As of yet, there is no way for you to go through and delete a project. So I can archive it, I can make it inactive, but I cannot fully delete the whole thing. So once I hit save, that project has now been created. Now I still have to set it up because at the moment, all I've done is basically made a folder that has a name. I can't access it or do anything yet until I actually take care of this. And if you're wondering what you're actually looking at, don't worry. The reason why this looks different is because they've actually just updated the UI for this. So right now what I can do is I'm going to go in here and I'm going to start activating the services that I'm going to work with. And I'm going to say activate document management. And I have the chance here to apply a template. Now this is the only time that I can actually do this. So if I forget to do this or if there isn't anything that I want to work with, then I have to manually do it after the fact. And actually, that's what I'm going to do this time. So I'm going to say, don't apply that template. Then I'm going to come over here and say, I want to activate this. So now this is going to activate document management. And then if I wanted to activate other aspects of this, if I wanted to turn on BIM 360 field or model coordination or anything else, I can do so. And one of the new things that they just did was they gave you the ability to activate both classic field as well as modern field management at the same time. You also have the ability to deactivate some of these services as well. You can't deactivate document management though, because again, that's sort of the backbone library of the project. So this will go through that process and activate document management, and then I'll actually have something I can do in my project. Yeah. Hop up here real quick. So I go through here and see my project. Now I'm in my project and I can actually see that it's activated. And because I am the admin, I'm going to notice that these are gold gears. If I invite someone to my project and I do not see them as a gold gear, likely what's going to happen is it's either going to look like a no symbol, so it'll have sort of that circle with a slash through it, or what it'll look like is almost like a board game pawn or a little avatar shape. That just means they have access to the service. It doesn't define the level of their access though. Yeah. So I've got my project here. We set this up. And what I don't want to do is I do not want to just start adding people to this. And there's a couple of reasons for this. I just mentioned that when I add someone to the project, it doesn't define their level of access unless they are, full-on admin. And what I don't want to do is set up the project, or create the project, I should say, invite 20 people, and then start putting together folders and permissions. Because I know as I've done that, I'm going to immediately start getting emails and phone calls from people wondering why they can't see or do anything. It's because you haven't actually set them up yet. It's a lot easier to actually go through the process of setting your project up and then invite the users to it. And there's a couple of little tricks involved that can help streamline things. So first things first, I'm going to actually set up my folder structure and I want to start putting things together for permissions. So I'm going to go from my project admin into my document management. And what I'm going to see is that there's two main sections here. I've got plans and project files. And this is where a lot of sort of confusion can start when you're doing things in BIM 360. So I'm going to swap back to PowerPoint for 1 second to explain this a little bit better. So plans and project files. When you start off with the document management service, you're going to see things are in two main areas. So you get your plans area and your project files. Now, essentially what happens is when you upload content to these two services or two aspects of the service, it's going to get treated very differently. So let's say I have a document. I'm going to take a CAD file and I'm going to put that same CAD file in the plan section, and I'm going to put that same exact one in project files. So what's going to happen is that plans is actually going to treat that CAD file and take all of the sheets from that CAD file and treat them as separate elements. So take the arch.dwg, put it up there, and it extracts essentially the sheets. If I do that for the project files, it can see the individual sheets, but it still treats it as the overall DWG file. Now, what this also does is, let's say that I've uploaded this and I'm on version 1 and I keep working for a little while, and now I make updates to this. The plan section is actually going to treat those views separately. So let's say I've uploaded the arch.dwg 3 times. I never touched sheet 103, so that hasn't changed. So even though I've uploaded that file 3 times, A101 and 102 are version 3. 103 is still version 1 because we haven't updated it or touched it. Whereas on the project files, it's treating it as a single entity. That overall file is more of a container for the others. So regardless of whether I've touched 103 or not, the overall file is now version 3. So that's essentially what's happening. When you put certain file formats into the plan section, so right now we're talking DWGs, DWF, PDF, RVT, and IFC, it's going to look for sheets. So if you've got a multi-page PDF, it'll split that out into all the different sheets. If you have a DWG or an RVT, your sheet views, it'll pull those out. Project files is pretty much just the space for you to upload your content. It's not restricted to those 5 different file formats. You can upload a lot of different file formats. There's a handful that it won't allow you to upload, but if you did need to share like executable files or DLLs, just put it in a zip file and you'll still be able to upload it. And even if it's a file that you can't necessarily view in the browser, it will still manage it for you and do versioning. So that's one of the main aspects between plans and project files. Yep. So from there, now I'm going to hop back over to the actual service. So I've got my plans, my project files, and what I'd like to do is to start getting my folder structure. Now, I mentioned before that when I created the document management service, I turned it on, I had the ability to pull from a template. But let's say I have a template, but it's not on BIM 360 yet. There's a couple of ways for me to get that up here. So I've got my folder structure that I typically use on all projects. There's actually a service that you can get from Autodesk called the Desktop Connector. So think of this a little bit like how Dropbox or OneDrive has a mapped drive on your computer that you can easily see all the content that you store online. So I'm going to go through my Desktop Connector. So I'm looking at the different hubs I'm a part of. Now I'm going to go to the actual project that I just created, and I'm going to see only the project files folder. So I'm going to go in there. Now this is currently empty. These folders have multiple levels deep. They're also blank, which I want to point out because not all products can upload a blank folder. Sometimes you have to have content in it for it to work. This actually doesn't. So I'm going to grab my folder structure, and I'm just going to drag and drop it into here. And you can see in the bottom corner it says transferring files. What this is doing is it's creating my folders, and it's going to sync them to the cloud. Now, I don't have to do this. I can very easily say, make folder, name the folder, create my subfolders that way. But a lot of clients actually do have a template folder structure on their server that they start each project from. And what I want to make sure everybody can see is that this will still work. This will actually keep synchronizing, so it's uploading content to the cloud. And when I refresh my page here, I'm actually going to see my folder structure. So really easy way for me to start the thing off. I can either come in here and say I want to add subfolders, or I can just drag that into there, give it a few seconds, and my project is already taking form. It already looks like a little bit like a project should. Now, I've got my folders created, but I haven't done anything to make sure that other people can access this yet. So what I want to make sure I've done is I go through and set up my permissions. So even though there's folders here, if I invite someone to this project right now, unless they are an admin, they will not see anything. So what I'll do is I'll go in here and I'll say I want to see my permissions. So that's the Microdesk folder. So what I can end up doing is say I'm going to add. And if I start typing, I'll see a full list. Now I can see Microdesk under the company. So I'm going to say anybody who works for Microdesk should be able to see the Microdesk folder there. Also helps if I finish that command. There we go. Set their permission level. There we go. And add. And now I can actually see that I'm in here, as is that. Now, maybe I want to add another company to this. So if I go to received, I'll say add, and I'll start typing. Now, key thing here is that this is only going to show me the names of people in the current project. If I'm going based on roles, so this can actually show me different roles that I have access to. But I want to add other companies that I have not added this project yet. The easiest way to do this is to actually go back here, and I'm actually going to change my company. So I'm going to say I now work for Acme Test Company. I go back over here. It's going to refresh my page. Now I can say that. And now it's available. So essentially what I'm doing is I'm using myself to pull company names or values into this project. Once I've done that, I can easily come back here and change my company name to the next company that I need to actually invite to my project. So if I want to invite Marchese Design into here, same thing. I would just keep on wash, rinse, repeat until I've set up all of the company permissions. Now, I can't do any individual or user-based permissions until those people are in the project. But role-based permissions, I can set up before I've done anything. Company-based permissions, I need the company in the project. But using this process, the BIM manager or the project manager can actually run through and invite all the companies without actually having to invite all the users that come with it. So the goal is, once I've actually gotten everything sorted here, I invite people and they immediately can get in and see exactly what they need to see. So there shouldn't be any back and forth with, why can't I see this or why can't I access that? Okay. So once I actually have that all dialed in, what I can do is start going in here and actually uploading content. Now, exactly what I did before with all this, I can still do the same thing. So let's say I go into here and I've got things like submittals. Take all that, copy that in, and that'll upload all my submittal documents. Same thing if I go to my specs. And I can just start uploading all the content that I need to actually get in the project right from doing there. Now, if I don't want to go that route, or I haven't installed the desktop connector yet, you always have the ability to upload files. So if I go to the Upload Files button, same thing. Navigate to where my content is. And let's say I want to bring all my CAD content up here. This is now going to start processing that and uploading all my content into the Microdesk folder. And once it's up there, I can start moving it around if need be. I can tweak things and I can view it and start marking it up. And I'm able to see exactly what's happening, what's processing, where's the current status of all this. If I look up in the upper right-hand corner, I also have my publish log. So I've just uploaded all these CAD files, as well as all the Word, the PDFs. I don't think I uploaded the Excel file yet. And I can go to my log and actually see where my status is, what's been uploaded, who uploaded what, when did they upload it. I can actually track this and review all of this. So as part of my project setup, I've created my folder structure, I've brought in my content, and I've started setting up all my permissions. So that way when the team gets invited, the files that they need are already there, and the access that they need is already set up. Now, one of the questions that comes up a lot is, okay, well, how are people going to know when their files have changed? Now, this is something that I can't set up for another user, but it's part of typically the training that we would do to make sure everybody is aware of that. And essentially what you could do is right-click on that file and subscribe to it. So when I subscribe to a folder, I can do it to that individual folder, or I can do that specifically to that and all the content and subfolders below that. What this allows me to do is get an email notification whenever the content in there is changed. You add a new file, you delete an old file, you version a file. So this makes sure that I can stay on top of this. Again, this is something I have to teach the individual users how to do because I can't set the subscriptions up for them. So we have that there. Got my files all set up. And if I start looking at something, so let's say I take a look at one of my floor plans. I can view the content that's on here. I can see the different elevations that might be set up. And actually, let me switch to a different document. There we go. So I'm looking at the detail view here, and I'm able to see the content. And if I wanted to go through here and actually share this with somebody, there's a couple of ways for me to do this. So let me hop out of this for 1 second. Now, if somebody's already in the project, I can easily say I want to share that file with them or just point them to this. But if what I want to do is share this outside of my project, again, me as the project manager setting things up, I need to enable that. So I'm going to hop into the project administration for a second. I'm going to go to my services tab. And this is where I can actually finish the rest of my project setup. So what I'm looking at right now is I want to take advantage of how I can handle my document management. So I'm going to go to document management here. I can see all the activity that I just did. If I go to my advanced settings, this is where I can confirm whether or not I want to have the ability to share documents publicly. So setting this to on means that now I can actually create a URL that I can, or just basically a link, but I can email to anybody. And they won't have to log in, they won't have to take a seat, but that'll allow them to download any file that I want. So me as an admin has to enable this for my project. So that's one thing. The other thing I can actually do is start tweaking how I can handle aspects of my project. And what I mean by that is, if I wanted to do markups on my drawing, just draw on it, no problem, that's easy to do. If I wanted to go through and set up my issues, same thing, it's also easy, but it might require just some tweaking from me as the project admin. And these are things that don't need to happen in the very beginning of a project. If my goal is to just get the project set up, get people in it and working, I'm pretty much all set. But if I wanted to continue to tweak it and develop aspects of the project for its use, things like my issues, I would go in here and determine who has the right to create or to view issues. I would make sure that the types of issues that people were working with were correct. So if we were just starting the project, I probably wouldn't need to be worried about commissioning issues. So I can actually go through here and say I want to deactivate that one. That ensures that no one's going to accidentally be creating an issue for the wrong kind of thing. I can also create custom root causes and add custom attributes or properties. So what things do I want people to be able to put in there? Maybe I want to put a priority. You know, is this a low, medium, or high priority to handle? Do I want to put in a field for numbers? So what's the square footage that this needs to be, or that I am seeing the problem taking up? Like if I'm doing an exterior inspection, for example. So a lot of little things like that that I can customize for my project. I can also come through here, track my notifications, see how often I want to be notified about things. And I can also set up my project locations. Project locations is something where when I'm working with issues and I want to say this is where this is happening. Now I can put the push pin on the drawings or even on the models and say this is where it is. But if I want to have like a field that says first floor, second floor, east wing, however I want to break it up, this gives me that component. This is easiest to set up if you download the template and upload it as an Excel file. If you are working with Revit, perfect. Export your room schedule from there if you want. The nice thing though is this also works very well with those sheets I mentioned in the plans section. If it's in plans, I can actually designate areas on the individual views for these locations. So when you put your issue there, it automatically tells you where it is. Cool. So I've got my ability to come in here and handle a few more aspects of my project. I can set up those locations, the issues and markups. I also have the ability to create my reviews. Now, again, project just started. Maybe I'm not too worried about this. So maybe in a couple of weeks when we get going, I can always hop back in here and then create the approval workflow. But approval workflows are actually quite easy to set up. They're really useful. And there are multiple aspects of how I can do this. Do I want to do it where it's a group approval? So let's say my QA/QC team consists of 4 people. I don't care who does the review. I just need 2 out of the 4 to do that. So I can actually make a group approval. If I want to have multiple steps along the way where this person reviews it and then their superior does it, same thing. I can create multiple steps like that. So I choose the format that I want, give it a name, a description, and then I can determine who is actually allowed to initiate the review and who are the people designated as reviewers. So I can go through this process and set all that up. And then I can determine, okay, well, what are the review statuses? Was it approved? Was it rejected? Did they have to put comments in it? And one of the really nice aspects is that I can say anything that has been approved in this can then be copied elsewhere. So if you have a project and I've got my main working document that I'm continuing to develop, and anything that gets reviewed, I want to copy that and put it in a approved folder. So I have that snapshot in time. This is the version that was actually approved and designated as ready to submit or ready to build from or to go out to bid. So I have that record and I don't have to run through a full list of versions to find it. So this makes it a lot easier. Alrighty, so I'm gonna hop back into document management here. Now, with all the content that we've put up here, we've set up things for reviews, we can set how the revisions work. One of the questions that comes up is, yeah, but we're talking about docs, right? So it's really just, like a newfangled FTP, but it's still actually a lot more than that. So some of the things that you can do in terms of using document management for work, there's a plugin that actually was released recently called the file locking for Autodesk BIM 360. So next session that we're going to be going over is going to be talking about BIM 360 design. And as most people are aware, that allows you to work in the cloud using Revit. What not everybody's aware of is that that works for Civil 3D as well, and it also works for Plant 3D. Now, it doesn't work for AutoCAD or AutoCAD MEP. That's what this plugin allows you to do. So that actually allows me to lock the files now automatically. Even without that, though, we still had a lot of clients that just had to remember when I open up the file, right-click it and lock it. So that makes sure that as I'm working, no one else is going to be trying to edit or save the same file that I'm in. So it's very much a check-in, check-out process. And you can easily do this with the document management service. The other thing that not everybody is aware of is that you could actually take advantage of how it handles Office files. So if I am uploading all these different files, Word files, Excel, PowerPoint, anything from basically Office or that kind of file, this allows me to upload them. It'll still do versions, and it actually still allows me to edit them all. So if you put an Excel file up there for your project schedule, if you're putting your specs up there, I can actually go through that and work on it. And it makes it quite easy to handle. So when I pop back up here, I can see that all my files are there. If I happen to have the browser open, I can always click on it and tell it that I want to lock that file. And I'm going to notice that there's actually a padlock on that file now. And if I go to the browser, oops, wrong one, there we go. So I'm in here, go to Microdesk. And I can see these files. Now, one of the things that I'll typically do when I'm working on this is make sure I have the headers that help me out. So you can actually add more to this than you're going to see initially. So I can see that this is now locked by if I'm working with CAD files and references, I can see, okay, well, where are the references? Does it actually have them or not? So in this case, I can see that I locked that. I can also right-click on it and tell it to unlock, and then tell the next one to lock. So it's actually very easy to do this, even if I don't have that plugin installed. And if I'm in the browser, and let me hop into my project docs. So all the Word files are very easy to view. Let me find one that's a little bit more interesting. There we go. Now, if I look at this and I realize that I need to edit this, as long as I have a login for Office 365, I can say edit in browser. And sometimes it'll ask me for my two-factor auth, which is good because it manages all my security. But basically now I can come in here and start doing any edits that I need to work on. Do I want to select things? Do I want to strike them out? Do I want to do markups? If I need to put comments on certain areas. So all the typical things that you would expect from Office 365 in the cloud, you'll have here. And once I've done this, and let me make one more change. I'll actually strike that out. Cool. Notice that this is saving it as I work. So as I go through all this, I can keep working in here. It'll save all my work as I'm doing everything. And then I can say return. So I made a couple of basic changes to this file. And it'll actually save all the different things that we did. But notice how this is now version 2. So I uploaded the document file, I took a look at it, I reviewed it, I edited it, and then I told it I wanted to return. And it actually did some version control for me. So I can easily take advantage of BIM 360 to actually work, even if I'm not using any of the more vertical or advanced tools. A lot of people do tend to think of docs as nothing more than a viewer or as just a file sharing tool, but it actually allows me to work and coordinate and collaborate as well. So it really just depends on what I'm trying to get out of the service and how I want to handle it. And other aspects of the document management service that we can set up, we can take advantage of our transmittals. We can do those reviews that I mentioned. And similar to how we can, I would teach people how to use the subscribe. The other aspect of this that I can't set up for them is that project home. So this is something that we would make sure that everybody on the project understands how to use and how to customize it and set it up for themselves. So this ensures that everybody who's on the project sees all the information that is relevant to them. So I can go in here and actually check it and easily be on top of the project. So if I hit customize, then card library, I can see all the other pieces of information I can put in here. If I want to track all my project issues, I can bring that in. If there are other tools that I want to connect to this, if our company uses Power BI or there's web pages that I want to put in here, those are all things that I can set up. So whatever I need to do to make sure that this makes sense for my role, we can customize and set up so that way I can get into my project, get my information, do my work, and keep moving and keep things as efficient as possible. Awesome. Alrighty. Cool. Any questions? Good, please, if you have something you wanted to ask or you were hoping I would cover, make sure you drop that into the question or into the chat window. I'm keeping an eye on both. Okay, one question here. When I was inside of the project setup, one of the buttons that you might have seen was the upgrade Revit version. So the question is more along the lines of how do you set the project's Revit version? Actually, you don't need to set that up. The second you sync, and we'll be covering this next week, once you sync your BIM 360 design models into the cloud, that's what locks that project. Now, the interesting thing about that is I can still upload any version of Revit file to the browser. It just won't allow me to save or open from a different version. So if I'm actually working over here, let me hop back into it. So if I'm actually working inside of here and I just decided to upload a Revit file, that doesn't take into consideration what versions I'm syncing or saving to the cloud, because I'm just dragging and dropping it or using the upload files tool. Cool. Any other questions? You know, just in case people are typing while you type. So we have our webinar series. So today we were talking about project setup. The next one is going to be BIM 360 design setup and usage. That's going to be in 2 weeks. So we're doing this every 2 weeks. If there are things that you want to make sure that we cover or you have questions ahead of time, please feel free to send those over. Those are always great. In addition to this series, we have other events and other presentations that we're putting on. So next one that we're going to be doing on the 28th of May is going to be an intro specifically for Civil 3D for BIM 360 design. And our CIO team is actually going to be talking about using, excuse me, Microsoft Teams. That's going to be on the 9th of June. Alrighty, no other questions. So if anybody does have a question after the fact, or there's something you'd like to reach out to us about, please feel free to contact us. So we have an active YouTube page as well. We're active on social media. You can reach out to us there or via email. Any questions, anything that we can help with, we'll be glad to help out. So thank you very much, everybody, for your time. We really appreciate it. Have a great rest of the day. And if there's anything we can help you with, please let us know. Thank you.